All right. How's it going, everybody? This is Relatively Speaking with your host, Cody.
Thinking. And I'm Sean. Today we're gonna start off with the five facts, and then we have a pretty large topic of ancient Egypt, which sums up a lot. But we'll get into some type of death today.
All right. So without further ado, we'll let Sean go into the beginning of his first fact.
Yeah. So not all mine are specifically ancient Egypt. I thought this one was rather interesting. So King Tut, when they opened him up and we found his tomb and all that, he was found with a iron dagger. You ever heard about this?
Did not.
So it's strange because they were in the Bronze Age. So an iron dagger, ironsmithing and stuff like that wasn't really, a big part of, or even any part of their culture. And when scientists ran the test, figured out what this blade was made up of, it's called it's what is classified nowadays as meteoric iron.
Huh.
So oftentimes this iron, when a meteor comes down, it's usually made up of iron, nickel, and cobalt, and that's kind of what makes up the meat, and that's all the properties that this knife had. And it was a very strange thing, why would they even attempt to do something like this? And this kind of ties in with it too. He had on his breastplate, he had this very large stone. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that either. It's a yellow stone. For a while they thought it was some crazy out of this world thing. Turns out it was just glass from a nearby they call it the Sand Sea, the Great Sand Sea. It's west of Egypt. But they also found out that a meteor did hit there. There's meteor remains, and because of how large it's 10 times more powerful than an atomic bomb.
Mm-hmm.
The impact was, and it created, obviously the glass that they used in his breastplate, and then obviously they found the way to use that rock and make him a fucking solid ass dagger to go to death with.
That's interesting. That has a lot of implications. Obviously, if there's something that would be ahead of its time, the king would have it. So that part makes sense as to if there were something to be, hey, can you do this? Or hey, can this be done? And they try. The one person that would,
receive the best
it
outcome
exactly
would be the king.
That is extremely interesting. It kind of goes back though. It really hits at that fabric of our dating system sucks. Like the way that we date things and the way that we think certain ages were at certain points. And it goes
It's
not only
broad.
No, it's broad and not like it sucks, it's trying to be unfair to the people that are deciphering it, but it sucks because whoever wins tells a story. So if they had an issue with the people who were advanced or more advanced or this or that and the other, they're going to act like it didn't happen in order to continue to shun them. And that's just how we are as humans because we're spiteful as fuck.
Yeah, I forget what it was, but there was a theory about how he obtained those, and then that was kind of to disprove, which is, it seems somewhat logical. It's a very large part. I'm not sure what country it is, just west of Egypt, and it even comes into Egypt. But I don't know, a large meteor hits that, and we can't really tell how big the crater is or anything, covered with sand. But
we also hate to put human factors into anything historical, and to the simple fact of there are so many variables. Somebody could have owed the king something, and they could have known that if they were caught, they'd be sentenced to death. So they found this, and they created it in order to be hey, spare me. You're the only one in the world that has this, or so on and so forth. The king found it and was yo, can you make me a fucking badass knife? Or there's so many variables that could have happened. And I know that you can't prove those things, but we also need to realize that those things are possible.
Yeah,
that's not probable because of this time frame. No, it's fucking there. It's obviously probable.
Yeah. That's good that you brought that up, because my first speculation of it was just the king. You know what I'm saying? They, at some point they probably were there's this crazy weird almost translucent, which the stone that was in his breastplate or his chest plate, whatever you want to call it, was really shined down, and it was sanded down and shined. But I don't know, that was my first thought process, was just king heard word of something over there and thought hey, might as well snag it.
The funny thing about that, I'm not going to get into it right now, but and I think you're going to touch on it as well, and hopefully the similar aspect or maybe different, I don't know, but the Egyptians were way more advanced than we give them credit for.
Yeah,
The perfection of what they did,
Mm.
just with the pyramids alone, never mind into diving into other things, but the amount of perfection and what utilizing Pythagoras's motto of numbers are everything. Like they utilize that to a T with what they built and what they created. So I think that is extremely possible for what we're going to divulge later.
What's that?
All right, so I'm going to go technically quite a bit forward in future, but also technically quite a fuck ton past Egypt in the past. So a 28,000-year-old mammoth was discovered, partially intact, frozen, obviously. And some of its cells were still partially regenerating and doing their jobs 28,000 years later. So I want to get your initial gut shot thoughts first.
I don't know. I mean, that's just. I mean, we kind of had the idea, get frozen into ice and all that. I mean, there's a lot of like denial about, it'd probably just kill you.
Cryogenics and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, shit. That's fucking huge. Because now we have literally. I mean, if they are regenerating, we get like a full cell that's a full cell of a mammoth.
Yeah, and there was the cells that were regenerating were parts of the reproductive cells, like to create an egg, which is even more interesting. So even after dying for 28,000 years, that species is still trying to survive, even at very, 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 very slow pace, and may not ever happen, but it's still attempting.
Yes,
and it changes.
Human nature just trying to continue itself. It's
which would be pre-human nature. But it's just, I don't know. There's so many openings to that, and so many like unfathomable thought processes of the fact of like that, let's say something catastrophic happened and there's only parts of somebody that survived. There is a potential that, years and eons and so on and so forth, the human race is restored again, which isn't, always great. We're a parasite, but still, to an extent, it's insane.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, like we have it ourselves. Like it's like a doomsday thing. It's like one of the most like vaulted up places in like the whole world. It's somewhere in the mountains somewhere. I don't fucking know, but it's like hundreds of seeds, like millions of seeds, but I believe
it's in Alaska.
Yeah, it's like thousands of different types for like doomsday that will have like some type of agriculture, and that's, I mean, essentially like that would be what that is. It's like us, or in this instance with the mammoth, it's human nature just kind of trying to, what I'm saying, they had something stored.
Survival, yeah.
Damn. All right. Well, again, here we go with a lot of the UFOs. So Russia, I'm not sure if you knew about this. So in 2009, they released a lot of what do you call it? Classified files. That's the best way to sum it up.
Which would be unclassified now.
Yeah. So there was two that popped out. So they use USOs, which is unidentifiable submarine objects. Kind of like a UFO as well. There's two stories that apply to this. So Bermuda Triangle. This was in 2009. Bunch of nuclear subs, they're cruising around and they see coming up on their radar, I think it was like 5 different objects traveling of what they seen as it would have been like 400 kilometers, like 250 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And that's like crazy underwater. So but at that time, it was going directly at them. They didn't know what it was. Then all of a sudden, just kind of rised up, all 5 of them, like out of the water, and just kind of took off. Which is another crazy fact that 50% of all UFO sightings have to do with them, emerging from a large body of water or something like that.
Well, which makes sense because the closest place to space on Earth is in the deep ocean, which is also something that we know almost nothing about.
Yeah, exactly. We know more about the moon than we do, outer space, our whole solar system, than we do with the ocean. I mean, I don't know. I thought that it was just rather different, like Russia just coming out and plainly saying it, and
yeah, but Russia don't give a fuck.
That's true. Yeah, it was 2009 too. It was just like, I don't know. I don't know if conspiracies. I don't know if like there wasn't a large push towards finding that evidence.
I feel like.
Well, it was
I feel like UFOs are a really difficult subject to label conspiracy anymore.
Yeah.
Now, I do obviously think that some people really get too carried away with it. And I feel like people kind of get a little bit too insane about it. But I do feel like any logically thinking person understands that the potential possibilities of us already making contact with other things and other things making contact with us for years and years and years. It's astronomical. Like it's more of a potential of us not finding it than how many have found us.
Yeah, we like I brought up last episode that fucking the first interstellar, the first meteorite, I guess, that came from like a different galaxy, which turned out to be like 3 billion years old or some crazy shit. Like, you're telling me that, like, that rock 3.9 billion years ago, like, that finally made it to us, but like another evolved civilization hasn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about what we could do too. Like, if we weren't so egotistically and self-centered, like if we weren't worried about you might find it faster than me, so I'm going to kill you. Like how far we could be.
They gain the power.
Yeah, the problem is that everybody's self-centered. Everybody wants to worry about themselves and build power and hold it and this, that, and the other. And it's not even actual power; it's just the presence of power. They're just bitches. But anyways, so like if that were to go away, we could be that far. Like we're just now learning that teleportation, like we talked about last time, teleportation is actually happening, obviously on a very, very, very minor scale. But the way we are as humans is once we know it's possible, we're going to stretch it as far as possible. We're going to continue, and we're just going to keep striving to get better at it.
Yeah, I think we're on the brink of essentially like the Industrial Revolution. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, we even talk further back from that, where like we just kind of hit like, within like 300-400 years, we just hit like this crazy
growth.
And I think we might be upon
the past 40 years has been more drastic than any other couple hundred year.
I feel like I have heard that. I feel like I have discussed something.
Well, think about it. We were barely flying in the early 1900s, and now we're in space.
Oh yeah.
Where like the amount of speed, the amount of capabilities. I mean, we were having trouble talking on the phone in the 50s, and now everything is instantaneous. Everything is immediately like the jumps that we're going through are scary in a way and exhilarating in another.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like mankind kind of intervened, and we'd probably be much further along if like everything. Of course, everything's not going to run smooth, but I think like we were saying, like those 300-400 years where we like kind of this is the start of it. Like
could be
the plans, California, like the electric cars, all that other stuff. Like
it's just the start of Minority Report. All right, so the other one for me, kind of within the same grasp. So there's the first baby was born from a embryo that was frozen 27 years ago.
Really?
So again, kind of in that cryogenic aspect, and also the fact of like it goes with the point of matter can't be created or destroyed, but that can also go with reproduction. Like we have a way to store, so many things, so that way if something catastrophic can happen, us as a race can continue on.
It's kind of scary. What if some guy that's saving the superior race? Like, do we have what I'm saying? Well, no. Like, I mean, essentially, yes, but
that's
it's
what
like,
I mean. It's just the modern day Hitler.
Yeah, if we get into like that kind of time where it's just like normal to do that, it's like, all right, let me just collect these guys. I'm gonna, hatch them here.
Shout out Bill Gates. Sorry, modern day Hitler.
We're gonna hatch them here. We're gonna train them, and then all of a sudden they're just gonna be fucking ruthless or something.
Yeah, no,
not even ruthless, but
not only that, but I mean, you can even take an extremely cynical approach. You can go through like the whole Georgia Guidestone aspect, and even like I was making fun at it, but the Bill Gates aspect of, let's kill off most of the population so that way the Earth, which I mean, in some essence, way or form, kind of in a way needs to happen. Not as much as they probably want to, but like it needs, like we're killing the Earth. So like something eventually will either something happens on our aspect or the Earth will make it happen.
Yeah.
But so like there's a way to store and save us. And let's be realistic. I mean, this is really bad to say, but let's be realistic. Like we need to find a better, I don't want to say race, because there's no such thing as a superior race. Like that shit means nothing. We're all the same. The chromosomes are the same. Everything else is the same. all it is pigmentation of skin. Other than that, that all is complete farce and bullshit in a way to make us separate and not realize that we're stronger together. But we need to find a better, I don't want to say, it's hard to say a better group of people, but like
a better thought process.
Yeah, people, yeah, like you have people that are naturally giving, naturally gifted, naturally want to work together for the better goal and non-egotistical. And then you have the 98% of the rest of us that have those traits slightly, but we've been trained and taught and conformed into not utilizing those. We've been trained to, you need to do this in order to get here, and you need to get there in order to get here. And when you get there, you need to do this in order to be able to sustain a somewhat a life. Yeah. And if you're not there, you're a failure. And if you're not here, you're a failure. And if you're not, and that's what we're taught. We're bred competition. Now, some competition is good, but to the point that we've been bred is absolutely horrendous. And we're just willing to step on everybody and everything in order to get what we want.
Yeah, unfortunately, we definitely come very far along with that. I mean, generation to generation to generation, it's just like, yeah, you kind of lead it back to the peers of that person, not even like the people, you know, kind of in someone's life, in that generation's life, like, you know, sum it up to a group of people that taught them, and the people that taught them, and it's going to go on and on and on. Fuck, what did I say? Oh, so, I mean, along like that, like, yeah, I'm just going to say it like that race, you know what I'm saying? The thought process race, we'll say. I mean, everyone's got like the balance is the good and the bad, right?
Yeah.
And it takes the people that can take their good to look at the bad and see what the bad is coming from other people, but still ignore, like, you know, it just takes like a fucking, like, like an equal, like, you got to equalize yourself.
You have
like,
to have balance. It's the control chaos aspect. Like, yeah. If you have too much control, it's slavery. If you have too much chaos, it is literally just destruction. You have there has to be both, and it has to be an even amount. You have to have somebody questioning the people that are controlling, so that way they don't get too much control. You have the people somewhat controlling the people that are going absolutely nuts, so they don't go too nuts. There needs to be that yin and yang.
Isn't that like fascist? Is that
fascist?
Fascist. I mean, what did they call the police station over there in Seattle? What did you say that was? Police or Department of the People?
I don't even know. I honestly blocked out that whole Seattle incident because if I would have like really dug into that, I really got probably upset in a lot of ways and talked some shit that I shouldn't have. So I just kind of like
stuck out of it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's like
that whole like Antifa thing. Like, I don't even want to like all of that bullshit. Is just so. Oh yeah, we're not gonna get on that. That's another episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that rate. Like, I don't know, that balance needs to come from, you know, a collective group of people that are living. You know, we can't just have like these governors, like we can't have these, especially for decades on end. Some of them are staying there for decades.
At least term limits.
Yeah, like maintain that fucking momentum, maintain that thought process from those decades ago, and then, you know, it's just it needs to be a very, of course, not everyone's gonna get together and see the elections and, like, you know, it's trying to swore people, like, you know, all that just brings more chaos because people can't have that type of thought process, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which is terrible. But third fact, huh?
Yep.
So this was also released. Probably the Russia files is a very, very large like group of classified files, and like these were the only two accounts that I could actually find. So obviously it wasn't just like, you know, we're gonna release all these, like, we're not,
and
it's
a lot of it's redacted.
And they probably would have thought they were gonna hide it somewhere deep in the depths, but 1982, Lake Baikal something. It's the deepest freshwater lake in the world, right next to Russia. I think it's like Kazakhstan right there. In the middle, it's kind of divided between the countries. So it was the Russian Navy is kind of tied into the Russia, military files. So the Russian Navy, they went out and they sent, I think it was like 5 or 6 naval officers to just go down and try to reach the depths and, whatnot. And when I think it was like, I'm not even sure, it was like 2,400 something, it's something, but they got down pretty fucking deep, and they all saw these humanoid creatures, like very tall. They said like 9 feet tall, very large. They were wearing some type of mask, and it was like very like eerie type shit. They gave off like an aura, and they were sitting there witnessing these like things, and 3 of them take these fish nets to go catch them. And as soon as they like went to go swoop, like all of a sudden they get shot like straight up, like right up to the surface. All of them did, all 5 of them, and 3 of them died. And those are the ones that were like holding the nets, like interestingly enough.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
The reason why they died was because they were at such a low depth that them shooting up to such like yeah, exactly. So that's exactly what it was. Like a lot of people like get sick and all that, and in severe cases they die. And 3 of them died, and the other 3 dudes were, gave their like statement on what they saw, and they just kind of stopped going over to that lake. And there's also other sightings that I've kind of seen. I didn't really dive into, but like of things emerging and flying away out of there and whatnot. And I'd say a lot more naval officer deaths that are kind of like strange in a way. But
that's interesting. I mean, that's a lot of. I don't know. That's a lot of. That definitely sounds like I would like to look into some more.
Yeah, you think about it. It's 1982. That was quite the distance away, or not quite, but that was a good time period away. And it's like, and you have all these like people were calling, and all over like oceans, everything, and it's like how much more are they colonized underneath us? Like
yeah,
it's a big, like we talked about, space. Closest thing to space is the ocean.
I would like to. So, did you have the exact depth, or was it like an average?
It was around like 2,400 like kilometer and kilometers.
Yeah, kilometers. 24. That'd be, yeah.
Does that make sense?
2,400. I mean, to an extent. I don't have the exact conversion perfectly between meters and yards. I know meters is slightly bigger, and kilometers would be obviously 1,000 meters. So if it's 2,400 kilometers, that'd be very, very, very deep. I don't know that a human can survive that.
No, I gotta look it up.
I'm just curious as to that aspect to see also like the elevation of that lake, the natural elevation of that lake, and see how far down that is compared to other places. Because not only that, the untold story about that could be, what if that lake is on the top of a mountain range, and how far deep they are? They're really not that deep. They're almost
they're holding that whole mountain range.
So it's not like they're under us. They could just be dug in tunnels into the mountain range. So there's just so many variables to that. I would definitely like to dive into that in way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and there was also a wormhole theory too with the oceans, and that's like because obviously as we advance, like our technology, we can spot things coming in and out of our orbit, whether or not we get the liberty to seeing or being told about what's going on.
We're still able to see them.
Yeah, so it's like, what if they're just coming through the ocean? What if they're just coming up out of wormholes through the ocean? And that's where that San Francisco, you remember the DMT with the astronauts, and that's a fucking ocean right there. I don't know.
San Francisco's been coming up a lot for me in other studies too. It's very interesting. We'll maybe bring that about into an episode later. But Vacation. San Francisco, maybe do some research on that. What else? Oh, look at longitude and latitude. I'll explain why in a little bit.
Hell yeah. That's all right. You want anything you want to start off with? Anything you got? As we get into the real shit.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot with the real shit. So this is definitely your category. So I don't want to impose too much.
I think this is very, very equal.
Okay, so I kind of wanted to start. Obviously, we understand that ancient Egypt was one of the more advanced civilizations. A lot of our stories throughout history come from it, from the stories in the Bible with Moses and parting the Red Sea, and obviously from the pharaohs and the critically acclaimed mummy, all those good shits. But there's Egypt is very near and dear to a lot of our hearts, especially the pyramids, Pyramid of Giza, the Great Pyramids, the Sphinx. A lot of us love to enamor Egypt in many, many, many ways.
The Nile, it's a big one.
Yeah, the Nile, and so Egypt is not a possible one episode subject. This is probably more of like an introduction and some tidbits and thoughts that we have that will create conversation and build other episodes, because the way that I broke it down is I kind of wanted to talk about the advancements of the builders of Egypt, and I'm leaving that as a whole because I'm not saying the Egyptians built them. I'm not saying aliens. I'm not saying Atlanteans. I'm just saying whoever the fuck did it was so much further beyond than we even give credit for. It's just unbelievable.
Or who told them to do it.
Yes.
Or how to do it, at least.
So, for example, So the funny thing is that we'll go a little bit above Egypt to start. So everybody knows Stonehenge, what it is. To obviously, what the general population knows it is. They know stones that are in a circle that create blah 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 blah. So Stonehenge is much bigger than we think it is, and then what we're showing. It's not just those stones. There's much bigger. It actually grows quite massively, and it has a rectangle on it, which is at a 5:12 proportion.
That was one for the Atlantis thing, but go ahead.
Yes, and it ties into all of that. So 5:12 proportion is very big. It's basically Pythagoras' rectangle and triangle, and it gets a little bit more in depth. The other thing found around it is the 7-point star, and the 7-point star is the star of Isis. Mm-hmm. Which is a symbol of Isis, again, Egypt. Also, Stonehenge was created around the time of Egypt, which it makes sense that something built so perfectly was built around the same time as something else built so perfectly. It's very interesting how those things work. And then, obviously, this isn't a Stonehenge episode, so I didn't get all the little tidbits of the different seasons and stuff like that. But it does represent the Druid calendar, which is Imbolc, Samhain, Beltane, Lughnasadh, and all of that, which again, that's a whole different cause. But just a couple things from it that I thought was funny. So here's one thing. So the Pyramid of Giza, the Great Pyramid, there is a chamber in it that but still, there's a chamber in it that is known as the Great Chamber. So, or the Grand Gallery. I'm sorry. So, where we were going with latitude and longitude, so the latitude of this chamber is exactly one is almost true north. It's 1/10 degree off of true north, that's the pyramid as a whole. So this is even crazier. The latitude is 29.9792458 degrees, which is the speed of light.
Meters per second.
Meters per second for the speed of light, which is absolutely insane. And that's not a coincidence. That's too many numbers to be, that's just a happenstance and so far and so forth.
Yeah, and that's like perfectly like where it is. That's the latitude, like you said. That's like north to like that was like something that blew my mind as well. Which I kind of knew as soon as we were getting down, and I seen the triangles, I seen a lot of shit, and I was just like, damn, all right. Yeah, I mean that's like there's much more. I have a few.
Yeah.
That's such a fucking crazy advancement. You got to think like the astronomy behind it is just fucking crazy. And speaking of the astronomy too, so before we, all right, so the scarab, also called the dung beetle, is the only animal that we know who uses astronomy to guide itself, who uses the light of the Milky Way galaxy. So the dung beetle gets its name. It takes pretty much dung shit, rolls it up, and it pushes it in a straight line. No matter what gets in its path, it goes into a straight line. Sometimes it lays its eggs and shit like that into it. But they follow this line by like the stars, by the lights given off of the Milky Way galaxy. Now, you see in a lot of hieroglyphs around Egypt, the scarab. It's a very popular thing, and I believe I can't remember the temple's name, but when like pharaohs get sworn in, or I'm not sure if it was pharaohs or priests, when someone like goes to learn practices or sworn in, like I said, the pharaoh, this temple right outside is a large monument of the scarab. The scarab was said to, it was given to the name of like a god. I forget what the god's name was, but the Eye of Ra, or Ra's chariot, which is the sun. Their theory was that, not theory, but they thought that when the sun goes down, it was a scarab beetle rolling it down.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they turned it into like a god, and there was a very large idea. It was that ancient alien dude with the crazy hair saying how there was a large jump, there was a large altar. There was like something altered our DNA at some point, a very large one. So his thought process was that the gods were the ones to do that. And like that's like, I don't know, it went much deeper with the scarab, but I thought that shit, like with the astronomy, like a scarab, like a fucking beetle.
Yeah.
is just like able to guide itself, and like they use their hind legs, so they're just like probably like chilling there doing like a weird.
So my
reverse
thing
handstand.
too is like you know how we do like a bunch of scientific experiments into like what an eagle's eye is like to look through and what
Yeah, what cats see, snakes see.
I wonder what they see. Like how in depth are their eyes to be able to follow that, or what light spectrums are they seeing in order to gain that? Because they've got to get it from somewhere. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where that dude was going. Kind of just like maybe it was, like here it goes. I don't think he was talking about specifically extraterrestrial, but like maybe it was just like this weird being. It's like fucking crazy. Like who knows? Maybe they got Star Wars aliens out there, and they're all like civilized on one bar, whatever the fuck they call it, with the fucking aliens playing the shit, like cruising through space, and then all of a sudden all these different races of extraterrestrials kind of implanted themselves. I wouldn't.
It kind of goes along with the Anunnaki theory and thought process of the ancient Sumerian gods, but that would be another episode as well. So
Yeah,
I'm too far of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they can tie. I wouldn't. I mean, I'm sure there's a way where someone concoct an idea of how, like, that being was able to leave a scarab, or leave a beetle, or lead, himself or something. Yeah, but onward.
So, another interesting tidbits about that same pyramid is the chambers within them and where they lead to. So you have the Queen's Chamber and you have the King's Chamber inside the pyramid. Each of them have it's not a tunnel, it's very small, but it's a
vent.
Like a vent that is at a certain angle. Now, at the angle in the Queen's Chamber that goes north, do you know what star it goes to?
No, I don't.
Okay, you were shaking your head like you were on this. So that points directly to Sirius. In that Sirius in the south, I'm sorry. In the north, it goes directly to the pole star, the North Star, which is very interesting. Now, in the King's Chamber, it goes to Orion. So, which is interesting because in between the star Sirius and the stars of Orion is what they believe is the Duat, which is the Egyptian afterlife, which is a lot of where Christianity brought its heaven above us thought process.
Yeah. Wow, that's fucking...
Now, between those three stars also creates that perfect rectangle, which is Pythagoras's 3, 4, 5 perfect rectangle.
Wow. I mean, shit. Like, I don't know how I'm still getting mind blown by this. Like, I've already kind of, based on what I got, like, I already got that feeling that, like, these guys were fucking crazy out of this world. And now it's just like, because, I mean, those stars don't move. Right?
They're there. I mean, we rotate, so the stars don't move. I mean, technically all of it moves, but to our perspective, yeah.
So they say, like, the fact that they were just, like, pinpoint that, and, like, goddamn. And there's so many more hidden chambers, too. In that, whether they be small, large, even the one that I want to find out more about that one with the scratching around the door, like it was a legitimate doorway and shit, and a tunnel that a fucking 5-year-old would fit in. But yeah,
the other interesting facts is like the height. So the height is 480 feet of the Giza pyramid, which is 1/11 of a mile. Now the interesting thing is. They believe that the top pyramid, like the piece of metal that goes on top of it that's missing, that they believe that it's sheeted with electrium, which is like a silver, gold, and other elements compound that would create an extremely bright light when the sun hits it, which would be similar to our dollar bill, like the all-seeing eye. It would kind of look like that aspect. Wow. So that was 1/11 of a foot. Also. Like, it was the exact scale of the other pyramid. Like, the whole height of a pyramid, it's like the same scale, almost to, which would make sense as it would go up.
So it's all pretty much, like, correlated, almost like a 3, 6, 9 type of deal.
Sort of, yes. Now, the other interesting aspects is so the pyramid is obviously broke down into the triangles. So, you have one, so they're not exact. So the left side of each triangle is 50 degrees. and the right side is 50, or I'm sorry, 5151 on the left. The right side is 5150. So now on the bottom of the left at the 5151, that creates pi. On the other side, the top spectrum on the angle of the triangle creates phi.
What's phi?
Which is 1.67. It's another extremely important number. It's basically the calculation for holy shit, it's too late.
Like an orbit?
No. Like the creation of everything. You know how everything repeats itself. The Fibonacci sequence.
Oh, okay.
That's the calculation for the Fibonacci sequence. So it's insane that those two numbers come up. So now another aspect is on that same side, it measures on the right side. It's 365 feet.
200.242.
Well, no, that same triangle represents so it's 20 moons for every 365 days is another representation of that right side, which is 20 lunar cycles or 20 lunar cycles per 365 days. It's just interesting all the correlations between it.
I got another one that's fucking weird. I thought for sure when you started, you said two of them, and I thought for sure you're gonna say the one I was gonna say. So so first off, the Great Pyramid, as you know, like you said, the cardinal points. Now, who's to say like the Earth hasn't moved and shifted and all that. So like that might be why it's like a fraction off. But if you take the cardinal points and the corners of the pyramid and wrap all those points around the Earth, it has the most. It covers the most landmass out of anything in the world.
Huh.
Like those points going around cover the most. Like it's crazy. Their measurement, the way they measured. So the way we perceive it is that their inch, they called it a royal cubit, which was it's like 1.83 feet nowadays for us. So it would take 25 million exactly royal cubits from the tippy top of the North Pole all the way down to the South Pole. It would take 25 exactly, which I thought was crazy. The unit of measure was so precise and so exact that it's like...
Well, it's based off of the thought process of the equator and the kilometer. So the way that they got, and the same with meters, how it was the thought process that the equator was 4,000 meters or 40,000 meters, and that's how they created or 40,000 kilometers, and that's how they created meters is based off of that. And it's the same thing. Because I thought that was interesting too, so I wrote it down somewhere that I probably not gonna be able to find right away. So, that page would be the first one. So, fuck, I lost it. It was 365,000, or 365 times 360,000. Yeah, that's what it was. It was the days of the year times the degrees of a circle times 1,000 is the equator, and that's how they were getting feet. And that's how we derived for the American measurement, the standard measurement of feet.
That's fucking...
So the days of the year times the degrees of a circle of the Earth times 1,000 is how we got the circumference.
I feel like that shit should have been on my math test. Honestly, like that seems like so simple if you just dumb it down. You never really think to do something. So
I'm glad I remembered it because I didn't write it down. But yeah, so that's how we got that, and they went with the 40 kilometers, and they got the meters, and it's just same thought process, just different approaches, which is again why making somebody learn a certain way is dumb, because people can come to the same conclusion in different ways depending on how your mind works.
Yeah, most definitely, and like that's pretty much you just pointing out the 25 million. Like 25 million, I guess, was just like a example, I guess. I mean, there's many fucking examples for like how precise it was. But what I wanted to basically align up here. So by their measurement, the cubits. So you ever heard of a tropical year?
No.
A tropical year is when the sun's longitude makes a whole 360 degrees. So every 360 degrees is a tropical year.
Okay.
So using the royal cubits as a measurement, the whole entire foundation, the base of the Great Pyramid, is 365.242 royal cubits long as like the straight base foundation.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the amount of days. Like that's exactly, I think it's 365 days, and then it's like fucking, it's some like weird hour, like all this shit. Like it's like again, like you already brought up this, like the sides, you already brought up like some crazy shit. And then turns out like the foundation, like did they know about the tropical year? Was that something that they could?
Well, the same thing is like the whole process of the speed of light. Like, how would they have been able to fathom the exact speed of light?
Yeah, that's true as well.
Like, that to me is so astronomical.
Mm.
Like, that they were able to pinpoint it at that point.
Now, was Alexandria? That was part of Egypt, wasn't it?
It was kind of same area.
It was just northern, up Mediterranean, Greek.
Well, it's still part of Africa, but
the Library of Alexandria, how they this kind of goes with the light, you know,
Yeah.
how they harness like the light, that crazy tower and shit. But
that's in like every Assassin's Creed game now.
the
Push the post, hit the light, let it reflect off to something else to open the next part of the temple, blah, blah, blah.
yeah. I mean that is a fucking huge thing. Being able, I mean.
But still, I mean, it's one thing to manipulate and bend light. It's another thing to fathom the speed in which it happens.
And you got to think, how long? Like, when did we figure out the speed of light?
I'd have to look. I don't even know.
Or see. All right, yeah. See, so that's tricky right there. Fuck.
I still think speed of light is self-perception, but yeah.
Yeah. We went through that. That was cool. That was definitely cool. Yeah, shit. I mean, compared to like when we notably, like how we would have to find the speed of light just to figure out. But if we ever lose the speed of light, that's fucking.
Well, the only thing that is greater than the speed of light is a black hole, which light doesn't escape.
I know, but like what I'm saying is like it just kind of feels like ancient times and modern times have been separated to such a crazy extent. It's like, do we know the speed of light because the Egyptians knew the speed of light, or do we know the speed of light because we had to figure it out on our own?
We figured it out on our own. I'm sure that was like one of the science advancements, because then we created the light year and how far we are away from the sun and so on and so forth. And you have to think that ancient Egyptians was well before that. You know, past ancient Egyptians, we still thought, you know, the world was flat. Well, we still do now. So past ancient Egyptians thought that the solar system rotated around us. The sun and everything else rotated around us. That we
were the
didn't.
center.
You know, this is only, you know, a few hundred years ago that we realized that we're not the center of the universe. We're just the center of ourselves in the world.
So if anything, they kind of had the guidance. They kind of had the outline.
Yeah, it's a couple thousand years before that. They're already aware of that, which is insane.
Yeah.
I will definitely let you finish your stuff from here, because the last thing I have is off.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely don't have too much more. It's more of reiterating. I mean, the speed of light, the coordinates of the latitude. I mean, all right. So, along with the longitude and latitude, you know, obviously it makes like a grid.
Yeah.
The pyramid, the Great Pyramid, fits perfectly in between one of those squares.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which I thought was like also something crazy as well, but
it would be within a 10th degree because it's not a. But yeah, still.
Yeah, like a slant. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's kind of slightly cocked because it's a 10th degree of true north, so it's not exactly facing north, so it wouldn't fit those grids exactly.
Not visually
yeah.
slanted, but yeah, I thought that one was like crazy. The fucking shit I was looking at, it was just like one after another. You know, just it started with the speed of light. You know, went to the cardinal points, fucking all that, which just kept going, and it's just such an advanced building, and it's the only ancient. I believe it's the only ancient wonder.
Only?
I believe that's the way they put it. I don't know. Is it national?
Eight wonders of the world.
I know, but
that's one of the 8. The Babylonian Guardians.
Yeah, it could just be that they meant like ancient Egypt. Or,
yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, it kind of threw me off too because I had to like I don't know. Yeah. That's my shit.
So where I wanted to go with this, I wanted to go to my favorite topics, which is gods, and one of them in particular. Obviously, anybody who's done any research in Egyptian history understands that within that pantheon, there's multiple gods. You have Ra, Osiris, Isis, Horus, so on and so forth, which is very similar to the other pantheons. It's the infighting, the father and the brother fighting, Hades, Zeus, so on. All of that good stuff. So I want to talk about one that's not talked about enough.
Nibiru? Not Nibiru. What is like their dark?
Anubis.
Anubis. All right, yeah. Okay. I just had to clarify.
Yeah. He's the god of the underworld. So we're going to talk about Thoth. So Thoth is again, we're talking about Greece. Their Greek counterpart would be Hermes. So Thoth is the god of the messenger and wisdom. So messenger and wisdom were kind of it's one of those the word can mean both.
Yeah.
So I like to go with wisdom, god of wisdom. And so there is this theory, and it's backed up in a lot of different documents and scriptures and stuff like that, is the Emerald Tablet of Thoth. And there's multiple Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Now,
I've heard of these.
Are
these the Black Sea tablets, or
so that's kind of what I'm going to get into. So it's not technically the I think it was a Dead Sea Scroll. Or
Dead Sea.
So it's not exactly those. I kind of have some theories that I want to throw out at the end that people hate me for. So there was, I believe, this is why I screenshotted it. There were how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, potentially 15 tablets of Thoth. And I'll go through them in a minute. But the cliff notes to them were basically they were the secrets of the universe. They withheld the wisdoms of the whole universe, alchemy, astrology, theology, which is the operation effect of supernatural or deities on basically white magic. So they were supposedly held the secrets to everything, all wisdom, all knowledge. And they were supposedly found under the statue of Hermes in
Greece?
Not in Greece. It was Tyana. It was supposedly clutched in Hermes Trismegistus. I always say his name wrong. Trismegistus hands, which is the god Hermes. So I don't know how obviously the validity of that. But there's different theories about this. There's theories that Seth, who was the third son of Adam and Eve, wrote this. There's all these different things. So before I get into my theories, I'd like to read what the tablets were supposed to have talked about. Not the actual tablets themselves, but so the first tablet was a history of Thoth, also labeled the Atlantean, which I thought was interesting. Second one is the Halls of Amenti. Third is the Key of Wisdom. Fourth was the Spaceborn. Fifth was the Dweller of Unal. Sixth was the Key of Magic. The Seven Lords. The Key of Mysteries. The Key of Freedom of Space. The Key of Time. The Key to Above and Below, which I think is very interesting. The Law of Cause and Effect. And the Key Prophecy. The Keys of Life and Death. Atlantis and the Secret of Secrets.
Yeah, so, right away, I mean, what is it? Would you say Rise and, or the Secrets to Above and Below?
Above and Below, as above, so below.
And then the Atlantean, and we talked about this in the Atlantis episode where it was, we talked about how they went to Ireland, the white people. Yeah, and then they like I said, they were, you're dying civilization, something happens to you, something catastrophic, you're going to want to save at least something to push on forward. Then you have like all these crazy commandments that could have guided Egypt.
I love how you just said that word.
Like the 10, commandment. Because I was thinking the whole time the 10 commandments.
So my theory was, why would the Pharaoh chase Moses if he just saved the slaves?
Because he had something that the Pharaoh...
He had something that he really wanted.
Yeah.
Which could have been the 10 commandments, which could have been one of the tablets of Thoth.
Yeah, I remember...
Actually, because it's 2.
I remember it was an article or something. It was... I don't know. It just came to me. But there was idea or someone said something about the commandments that Moses had was an emerald slate. Which, shit. Fuck.
Yeah. Interesting, right?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, that would, because there's that theory. I mean, I don't know if this is where that theory originates from, but the theory that the Atlanteans just became the Egyptians, passed on and, became that or known as that. Fuck. Shit. That's going to be tied into the next one. And if it was
a 10 of commandment, that could have easily been the keys of life and death.
Yeah.
with that tablet.
Not very much so. Huh. That's fucking mind-boggling. So does it give it like a time when these might have been written?
No, nobody knows. They're from a god, so obviously that's the theory, is that they're from the god Thoth, which again is the god Hermes, which again is many, 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 many gods over and over and over. But the thing I like about it, and the thing that I think is interesting, is it ties into a lot of things. So Egypt is known in the metaphysical community and as one of, like, Plato, Pythagoras, all of them, they wanted to study in the Egyptian mystery schools. That was a big thing, was Egyptian mystery schools. They would travel to Egypt and study in these mystery schools, which is what I think you were trying to say earlier when you're saying the temples and learn and become this and become that. That's why you didn't have a word for it. But then the Greeks created their own mystery schools. You know what I mean? That Pythagoras, Plato, they had their mystery schools. And that's where you had the best philosophers, and we still use their fucking philosophies to this day. Socrates, all of them. Like, you have, like, they come from this niche of people who kept this knowledge going. Where did it go? There's some beliefs that, you know, obviously it went into this is where it kind of gets crazy. It could have gone into the Masons. It could have gone into, some people believe in the Illuminati. I do not. But it could have gone into the Illuminati. It could have gone into the people, I forget what the name is. There's a name for, like, the richest families that were, you know, blah, it's been a while since I really dived into a lot of conspiracy theories, but it was a prominent theory. So, like, there's so many avenues of where that knowledge is somewhere. Obviously, there's probably a fuck ton of it in the Vatican, but beyond just always blaming the Catholics for all the problems, it's just most of them. But to continue on, like, that information is still somewhere. People still have it. It's just not given out there. But the thing is that it originated somewhere.
Yeah, and got passed along.
Unfortunately,
the thing that kind of concerns me is the fact of what the original, or if there was the original text, what they said. Because, I mean, you look at a lot of things pass through time, stories, all that. You know, it always gets perceived a different way through each people. Maybe that's what the Greeks did when they had their mystery schools or whatever. Maybe they learned something, or, you know, maybe the tablets just had this thing where it was just like enlightenment on fuck. I mean, it could be many things. It could branch out very far, but I don't know if it 3 royal families, I want to say, but it's not the royal families.
No, it's not royal families. And I believe it's 12.
12.
Council of 12 or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, but if it falls in the hands of something like that, and if it's supposed to be like those world governing people that are just terrible and you know, manipulate and do all this other stuff, like, it obviously ended up in terrible hands, if that is correct. But it's fuck. I mean, it's like they're doing something right. They obviously have the right idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, again, it's just so many, like, I love alchemy. I think it's one of the most amazing things. You know, obviously there's the stories of the Philosopher's Stone. They believe that story comes from these tablets. And most of the men that even the history books teach about, to an extent, were alchemists. Like Isaac Newton was an alchemist. They don't obviously want to tell you that in history books because alchemy is bad and doing this and doing that is bad, blah, blah, blah.
A lot of notable people.
But a lot of notable people were alchemists, and they were also occultists, and they were also extremely, extremely brilliant people, and they wanted to know more. That is the natural instinct of a human, is to be curious. That is our first and foremost natural instinct. A child is ridiculously curious. If you can hear the Jumanji stampede that's going across the video, it is my slightly overfed 2-year-old that is extremely curious and well past his bedtime, and he wants to know what the hell's going on. And that is just their natural curiosity. They always are wondering. They always want to know. They always want to figure it out. And that is something like where I feel like when they say keep your youth and this, that, and the other, that is what you need to keep. You need to keep that spark for curiosity. But we're told, just do what you're told. just no, this is the way it is. This is da 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 da. Excuse after excuse after excuse, and we again get numb to it.
Yeah, you get to the point where it's just like you just live, you just like confide.
Yeah, fuck that. I want to know, and these great men wanted to know, and they spent time around other great men that wanted to know, and they created something. Think about how long ago. We call it ancient Greece for a reason. We still use their mathematical equations. We still use their philosophical statements. We still use things hundreds of years ago. As technologically advanced as we are, we still have to rely on their stuff because a bunch of great men sat themselves in a room with other great men, conversated, learned things, and created and became better for it.
Yeah, I mean,
and where did it derive from? It derived from somewhere. That information came from somewhere. And that's what we should be doing as a human race, the only race that there is. The human race, we should be creating the things that the knowledge that we have across this world, bringing it together and creating better. We don't, because now we have others. We have nothing but separatism. We have race separatism. We have country separatism. We have fake boundary lines. We have corporate separatism. Yeah. You can't give that to my rival. So what if it helps mankind? I didn't make a profit off of it.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. That would just be everything most people in power right now would not want us to have.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, shit, I want you to send me that screenshot after, like, because that tells you, like what we're supposed to be talked about.
Well, so what I would like to do, probably not in the next episode, maybe the next episode, but I would like to do an episode about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Some diving in, some interpretations, all of that, like
points of view through, and then like where it may have come
where it may have came from, like a whole like thing about it. And that's kind of why I brought this up at the end with just little tidbits, just to kind of, strike the thoughts, and build them up. Let me make sure I had all my cliff notes on it covered.
Fuck. All the above and the below, yeah. Atlantis. That was one thing I forgot to slide in there. You know, like what if, the Atlantis sinking below.
So below.
Yeah. Or it could be above and then below, like above people. Or it could be, that's a weird way to interpret it. Like below, it could be below people. It could be above people. It could be.
Yeah, obviously I'm not the hugest fan of these theories, but your theory of Olympus being a UFO as above, so below, they're trying to create the same.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like we should, the Emerald Tablets. That's something we definitely dive into because, like, I don't know why I singlified it as singlified. That's not gonna fucking
simplify it.
Not simplify, but singled out above and below as like
as above, so below. Yeah.
Like as like Atlantis. That could be
a lot of things.
Many fucking things. That's a very large subject. Damn. Yeah, I would love to dive into that shit. I want to see where it comes up more so in culture as well, all throughout the world.
So challenge. So I'd like to try something different with the podcast and the research as a whole. So, as anybody who's watched before, the way that we basically do this is what we attempt to do is we create a topic, we do our own little research, and then we kind of get our tidbits and we go back and forth on it. And that creates, obviously, good dialect and good conversations and so on and so forth. And that's what the point is to create thought. Again, we're going to say stupid shit. We're going to say shit that doesn't make sense because a lot of it is gut shot. We don't know what's going to be said, so we're just kind of reacting to it. And it could be wrong. And if it's wrong, you can put it in the chat and we, so on and so forth. But I think for this one, I think we manipulate it slightly. I think we do 2 different nights in between tonight's show and next Friday's show. Research them with tablets of Thoth. 2 or 3 nights ago, we'll say Monday night, we'll discuss what we have and where we're going. Build. Wednesday night, we'll discuss, see where we're at, kind of build, and then kind of be off on our own for the last little tidbits, but see how it builds the show. See if it kind of gets a little bit more congruent. Because I think sometimes what happens is we're in this and we're trying to get so many good tips and so much information that kind of jumbles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And when we find, like, a lot of the same ones, a lot of, yeah.
So let's give that a shot. I will say, somewhat information wise, I feel like this was definitely a good show. I feel like in some ways we
Peered off.
yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with the peering off, but I need to stop writing my shit down because I can't read my own handwriting. So that
I
helps
do the
too.
same. I spell you should see how many
I go
words
so
are-
fucking fast, I can't keep up.
I don't bother writing it correctly as long as I know what it says. Like
Yeah,
the
and then I
idea.
try to read it and I don't know what it says, so it
Yeah.
doesn't fucking matter.
I do the
So so definitely there are some hitting points. Obviously, this is still new. This is our second live show. So that has obviously something to do with it. There's no editing, there's no changing anything. So it is what it is. You get what you get. So it will get better. Probably next week. So
definitely.
other than that, I mean, I'm pretty all set.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We still ended up somehow making it last an hour, so that's pretty much on course of what we're going for.
That's because the 5 fast facts took us to 25 minutes.
It usually does. That's the crazy thing about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Emerald Tablet though will help us. I think there's a lot to divulge in there, and a lot of theories, and a lot of thought processes. So I think that'll be a nice one. So as always, leave your comments down afterwards, and I'll say next Friday, 8:30 Eastern. Expect to start time. We're gonna try to hit that start time for now on, and that to be
Fridays,
our Friday 8:30. We're gonna try to hit that exact time so that we can get a little bit more people in here a little bit more consistently.
Mm-hmm.
That is completely our fault that we don't right now, due to our house almost blowing up last week, and so on and so forth in life. So, but we're gonna go ahead and staple that down. Hopefully, this will help as well. So, other than that, this is
Relatively thinking.
yeah.
Fucking out of here.
We're signing off. See you next week.